It's the Digital Babble with your host, Flipper. Colorful commentary on your photography. Seen on fingerlakes1.com.
Hey, everybody, it's Wednesday night, 7 p.m. It's time for the Digital Babble. And that's what this is. This is a Digital Babble with me, Flipper. And I'm a photographer, computer guy, Photoshop guy, just kind of all around, kind of hanging out with me for the hour. So if you're the first time you're tuning in to the live show, it's pretty much just me talking about photography, answering questions, teaching you a few things, techniques, teaching you about your camera, what it does, how it works, and that's what I do. This week's kind of extra special. We got a couple of questions from a good friend of mine and loyal watcher, listener, Frank, up in Waterloo. He gave me a few questions and 3 photos to discuss on the show. And then we're going to talk about the TV setting on your camera. This way you have control over your shutter. So before we get to that and we get to the camera part and the Photoshop part, I'm going to actually answer a couple of Frank's questions first. We'll do the camera and photography part, and then I'm going to go into Photoshop and try to answer and demonstrate a few Photoshop techniques to tackle his third question. So let's start off with question 1. The second picture that he sent me was a picture of the Bobby Orr Monument in Boston, I believe. Wondering if there was any way when he took the picture, if he could have avoided the reflections in the base stone. And yes, absolutely there is. There's a couple of different ways that you could have tackled this and gotten rid of the reflections. So before we get started, I'll actually show you the picture. So let me just flip my screen over here to our learning board. And this is the picture that he's talking about. And you can see it's quite an interesting monument. I love the sculpture on this. I mean, it's just so carefree and out there. The base, on the other hand, you can see the reflection of Frank taking the picture. I believe probably his companion there. And then you can see the car across the street. You can see a lot of different things in this reflection. Now, the majority of the reason for this is probably the stone is reflective. It's probably polished marble or some type of polished stone. The same thing can happen with glass. The same thing can happen with, cars, because they're fairly polished. You might get an unwanted reflection. And the first thing I can suggest is changing the angle of attack. In other words, maybe you change where you take the picture from. That would be the first thing. So maybe something that's dark over on the other side of the street. Maybe there's another building that might be a little darker. Just by shifting your perspective a little bit, maybe turning the camera, getting a different angle on this, you might get a reflection of a dark building, which then you won't get that reflection of you and the car and the people and whatever in the shops there. So that would be the first suggestion, is change where you're taking the picture from. Maybe change the angle. Maybe go a little lower so you're actually getting more of the top of the buildings, which might be a little less distracting. That would be the first thing. Second thing is, depending on what you have for a camera, it depends on what you can get. This little device here is a filter, and it's a polarizing filter. And you'll notice that you can see the reflection of my monitor as I move it across the screen, because the one side is one type of polarized and it's glass, so you're going to get that reflection. When you look through the glass and let the camera adjust, I'm going to see if we can't, yeah, you can see it in my forehead. This is going to be a neat experiment. Okay, so watch my forehead. You know that wonderful glare on my forehead, right? Okay, so if we turn the lens one way, notice the reflection gets less. Now, if I turn it back the other way, now it's going to get brighter. And that's exactly what a polarizer does, is it polarizes the light coming through the lens. So before it goes through the lens, it's going to hit the polarizer, and it's going to take and make the light waves line up one direction or the other direction. And that's why they call it a circular polarizer, because you attach this to the front of your camera, then you can rotate it. Oops, wrong hand. rotate it, and it'll change the orientation of the light that's coming through the filter. What this does is, by polarizing the light, will allow you to add or remove or change the color tone. Some of them are colored, but mostly it's to take and polarize light so you can see past reflections, because that's what reflections are a polarized light beam hitting, or the light beams bouncing off of something else, hitting something reflective, and then coming back into the camera. So like the spot on my forehead here, I'll put the polarizer back up, and we'll notice right here, the camera's now readjusting. I got that nice big spot, and I'm going to rotate it one way. Whoops, I pulled it away, sorry. Rotate it the other. And you'll see it'll adjust. And that's what basically happens when you put it on your camera, is it will take and polarize the light, whatever the reflection is, and it'll polarize it and actually eliminate the reflection. Polarizer is an awesome tool for seeing into water. Like, I don't know if you've seen people take pictures of things that are in the water, and sometimes that works okay without a polarizer, but you know what's even neater? Using a polarizer, because then you can actually see as far down as the camera can take the picture without ever being in the water. It's really a neat effect. It's great to take off the reflection off of cars. So like saying if you're at a car show and you want to take a picture of a car, and you don't want the reflection of you in the car, or you don't want the reflection in the car, you could take and put your polarizer on, mount your camera or hold your camera, then twist the lens, or twist the lens filter, the polarizer, until the reflection is minimized or goes completely away. And that is a great investment for any camera, any lens. Now, point and shoots works a little bit differently. Usually you can get a circular polarizer as well for those. And the other thing that these do is it takes and it lines up those light rays. It can actually enhance color in such a way that it just deepens the entire shot. Like your blues get a lot bluer and your greens get a lot greener. You twist it the other way and everything dulls out. It's letting in too much of the other spectrum or the other side or the other light waves. So you can definitely get multiple effects with a circular polarizer. Now they do make polarizers that are not circular, where they're non-rotatable. I don't believe that they work that great. Some photographers swear by them. I personally like having the ability to kick this on and just twist a little bit, and the light lines up this way. Okay, not quite the way I want it. Okay, now it lines up this way. And then I get the shot that I want. So if we were to put a polarizer on the shot, you would not see the reflection. You would see the stone and the texture in the stone. And that's the best answer I can give for that question. Now, what else can you do? You could take it into Photoshop and clone stamp out the texture. Maybe take that bottom street texture and just kind of clone stamp up it, and then take a gradient overlay and make it look like it's supposed to. That's always a way to do it. A lot of work just to get rid of that reflection. It's a lot easier to do it in the camera before you even take it. One of the best things to have in your camera bag is a circular polarizer. So make sure you grab one. That is definitely a flipper tip to have in your bag. I don't care who you are. So amateur, pro, circular polarizer can mean the difference between a great photo and a good photo. Sometimes it can also mean a lot of experimenting. I watched somebody do a, I'm trying to think of how to explain it. Long shutter, dark room, put a circular polarizer on the front of it, polarized it to a certain light wave, I guess, so turned it till he got the effect that he wanted. Pulls the shutter, gets out in front with a flashlight, draws in air, and what it does is the polarizer actually will take certain angles of that light, and you'll see it'll look very calligraphical. Like the light's bigger over here, and then it'll thin right out to nothing, and then it'll come back and be thick again. It looks like calligraphy, and just an amazing effect. Great to have a fun Saturday night, go drink a few adult beverages and, put the camera up on the tripod, long shutter, go grab a flashlight and have some fun. Definitely a fun time. I really think the big thing here though is the lesson to be learned is get it right in the camera the best you can before you get into Photoshop. That is definitely the biggest tip I can give anybody. If you start with crap, you're going to get crap. I mean, that's just the way it is. Now, sometimes we can recover decent photos in Photoshop and make them look awesome, but sometimes they're just so far beyond even, you know, really advanced people's ability to fix and do something with. And that's where we have to come up with a reasonable expectation. So the better you take the photo in the camera, the more options you have outside of the camera, whether it's printing, photoshopping, putting it on your website, putting it on your photo blog, whatever you're using it for. And, you know, by the end of the day, you know, if you have those tools in your bag, like a circular polarizer, it gives you a lot more options, and it's a very small, light item just to stick in your bag. So, circular polarizer. All right. Second question was also from Frank. Is the last shot, which let me pull that up here. Let me see if I got it here right here. All right, here it is. Frank, the last one just was trying to get a shot of the graffiti with my point and shoot from inside the train. I don't know what the question was exactly, but I think basically what he's asking is how could I have gotten a better picture of the graffiti here? Well, there's two things. One, I would have tried to zoom in more if you had more zoom range. Two, since you're moving by it from side to side, so it's coming from here and moving past, okay, that is the optimal speed. If it's perpendicular to you, it's the optimal speed that it's going to cross the frame, which means it's the fastest it's going to be. So if it's moving at 50 miles an hour, it's going to move 50 miles an hour past the screen. So if you're at an angle and it's moving this way, the actual motion of it moving this way is not exactly 50. It's kind of more of a reciprocal degradation, I think. So it's instead of going this way at 50 at optimal, you turn it 1 degree and now it's going to be doing 49. Do it another degree, it's going to be 47. Do it another degree, it's going to be like doing 45. Front to back, you know, now you're back to, it's moving away from you at 50. So it's kind of a weird kind of math thing, but it does not move as fast per se when you have a different angle on which way the motion is. So when it's going perfectly perpendicular, that's where you have to have the shutter speed as high as you can get it. So if you're moving at 50, the object is stationary, you're moving across the screen. If you got enough light, which it looks like you had enough light, you know, there was a lot of light there. All you had to do is get that shutter speed up and manually set that shutter speed up around 200-ish. 250-ish, and you probably would have gotten a really clear photo of just the graffiti. It looks like it's slightly blurry, but not bad. And I think really the thing here too is if you would have just zoomed in a little bit. Now, if you would have zoomed in a little bit, you would have had to be a little faster on the shutter speed. The further you zoom in, the faster the shutter speed is going to have to be. So this kind of rolls me right into talking about TV mode on most cameras. So we're going to flip over and get our camera. Right here we have our picture of our model camera that we've been using for the last few weeks. And we have the shutter and we got the mode dial. And of course the mode dial is where we set our modes. So on the mode dial, let's see, I got to find my mode dial here. Mode dial. All right, so we've now been doing the other side of the hemisphere here on the mode dial. We did P, we've done auto, we've done all the graphics ones, the portrait one, the macro one. Now we're on to TV, which is shutter priority. What does that mean? It means the camera allows you to set the shutter. Then you set also any adjustments. And then the camera figures everything else out. So your adjustments that you gain by using the TV mode is that you can adjust your ISO and you can adjust your exposure compensation. That way it tells the camera what's in front of the camera is lighter or darker than what it thinks. So what you're setting is going to be the base setting of the shutter speed. And then the camera thinks everything else or figures out everything else. Now, if you take the picture and you realize, the picture's too dark, you can use an exposure compensation and go +1. And that'll make it a stop lighter. Now that's going to change what the camera calculates for the aperture and the ISO, if the ISO is on auto. Now, if the ISO is not on auto and you're setting it, then the only thing it really adjusts is the aperture. So you might have your ISO to 3200 because maybe it's a dark scene and you got your 3200 ISO, and then you say, I want a shutter speed of 200, and it's going to give you back f-stop of f2.8 because it's dark. It needs to open up that lens as wide as it can to get as much light as it can in order to take that actual picture or exposure. Now, turning the tables on this and saying, okay, I want to set it down to a lower ISO. Eventually, your camera won't be able to take the picture because there's just not enough light to take the picture. And all you'll get when you pull that shutter, and it usually gives you a warning too. You pull that shutter, it's just going to be a total black frame. There's nothing there. Maybe some odd traces of light that might be shining into the camera, but that's about it. So that's something to be concerned with. Now, the opposite is true as well. You could be setting the shutter speed way too low, and then the camera can't adjust the aperture, close the aperture far enough in order to get an accurate shot or a proper exposure. So you might actually wash out the photo and make it all white. So those are your two spectrums. Now the question comes down to is, what are you trying to take? So the question comes down to is, what is the actual subject that you're trying to take? What is it moving at? What's the speed it's moving at? That way it gives you a sense of what you need to set your shutter speed to. Another great example is if you're hand holding, you want to make sure that you're at least the same amount as your lens distance. So saying your lens is racked out to 300 millimeter, you need to be 1/300th of a second or faster. That way you can't see your camera shake as you're holding it and pulling the trigger. That's the whole idea behind camera shake. That's what TV will do for you. It'll set that shutter speed high enough, or allow you to set the shutter speed to what you need in order to handhold. Another great way to eliminate camera shake, of course, is shooting on a tripod or a monopod. That'll help. But really, by the end of the day, the TV mode is a great way to not only... Because really, the TV mode is the action settings, but with more options. And that's really what it comes down to. So you're going to set your shutter, because that's really what you want to do. You want to shut your shutter. You got the boxer up in your face, and you want to catch the punch here and freeze it. Instead of going, whoa, and you got this big blur, you want to freeze it right here before it stops. So that's the concept of getting that shutter speed high enough so it freezes the action, or setting the shutter speed low enough so that you can artistically get the blur of the situation. So now let me give you some examples, which I think the first one's kind of funny because this one's me. Look, it's me on the Digital Babble. I love it. So what I did in this shot, which was kind of funny because I was like, well, how do I create... I racked my brains for 20 minutes last night trying to figure out what could I do in the dark here, because I mean my house was fairly dark. It was night out, I didn't have a lot of lights on. I turned on every light in the house, couldn't get it light enough to really demonstrate the fast shutter, slow shutter. And then I finally realized I could just put the kitchen lights on and then I will spin with the camera. So I held it. Let me change this because you guys are going to find this funny. I literally held my point and shoot right out like this, okay? Aimed it at me, smiled for the camera, and set my shutter speed to 1/100th of a second. Started to turn, pulled the trigger, and then that showed what that picture was. Second time, I set it for a longer shutter, so I think it was 1/4 of a second. And I started to turn pink, and then I pulled the trigger, and then this is what I got, which is kind of funny. I thought this was kind of cute. So here I am. The second one I didn't smile too well because I was kind of getting dizzy, spinning around in circles, so many shots trying to get this example. But you can see the beam above my head is blurry as all could be on the slow shutter speed, and it's semi-clear on the fast shutter speed, and that's the big difference. That's the whole thing. Now, why am I fairly clear in both pictures? Well, that's because when I was holding the camera, I was trying to hold it stationary to get the shot of me, so I wasn't moving enough to make myself blurry, but the camera and me were rotating fast enough to make the blur. And that's how I got that shot. And it was a fun experiment. It took a minute to figure it out. But I think everybody in the house was just like looking at me going, what are you doing? And of course my response was, I'm working on science. Doesn't help much, but definitely a fun time. I did get dizzy though. That's better than alcohol, I think. So here's another good example of fast shutter speed, slow shutter speed. The problem is, I don't know if you can see it real clear here. The stream of water, you can see more details here in the stream of water. You can see the pixels. You can see the drops of water coming down, hitting the centerpiece of my sink, and then splashing away. I didn't have enough light to get a fast enough shutter speed to freeze the action totally, so it's still kind of a center column. But if you look at the other picture, you will notice that it's kind of more blurry, more painterly like. It's kind of just washed over the sides of that sink. Pardon me. And one more example was I went into the shower. I said, okay, let's turn on the shower. That's a perfect example of fast shutter speed, slow shutter speed. So as you can see in the fast shutter speed, you can see the droplets of water. They're fairly formed and they're raining down. On the slow shutter speed, it's almost like painting. It's like lasers, so, you know, like little painted lasers on there. And it just kind of comes out and it's just kind of painted on this photo. Those are the difference of using, you know, making TV your priority or your shutter your priority, is that you can tell the camera you want a fast shutter speed, a slow shutter speed. Artistically, do I want to see a lot of blur? Do I want little blur? Do I want to freeze the action totally? What am I looking for? You set that, the camera then tries to adjust the other settings to make that happen. And then in TV mode, it does give you the ability to adjust everything. So your ISO and your exposure compensation becomes available to you. So that is one of the best modes you can play with, especially when you're looking for good shots of sports. You know, Billy's running down the field, and he's huffing it, and he's coming by you, and you're ready to go, oh, right there, snap the photo. And my shutter speed was way too slow. I wasn't panning right, and everything just blurred out. You can't even tell it's Billy. Speed up the shutter speed. Here he comes again for another touchdown. Oh, boom. Oh, look, I froze him in action. Half kind of like, you know. So that's the key here is you need to tell the camera what to do. And TV mode makes it really possible in shutter priority. Works very similar to the action mode shot. It adds additional adjustments like I've gone over. And it's a great setting for, you know, getting creative with the shutter itself. So getting those blurry, not so blurry, so on and so forth. What are the good things and bad things about TV? Good things, of course, you can set your shutter, freeze the action, let the camera do the rest of the thinking. A lot of times, you know, you can do the exposure compensation, you can work with the ISO, make your adjustments to get faster shutter speeds that work for you. You know, and setting the shutter does allow you to capture things that are moving faster. It also allows you to capture things that are moving slower. Like I've seen a couple of very interesting painterly-like photos, very artistic. I've been deconstructing this one photo for almost weeks now, and I think I finally figured it out. They went out on an evening where it was kind of dusk, and then they shot the photo based on the tones, but opened that, you know, or lowered that shutter speed right down to like 2-3 seconds. And as the waves crashed over the pier that they were shooting, it just painted the water on. And it was just like this misty kind of, it was such a long shutter speed. It was just very misty and very beautiful. And then you saw the clearness of the pier because, you know, they shot it on a tripod. But it was just dreamy, you know. You could do the same thing for a lot of different photos. You can make dreamy portraits of people. I know one photographer, she's amazing, uses slow shutter speed for any of her lingerie shoots. You know, they'll be walking, you know, kind of get the sexy walk going, and then the lingerie would be flowing, and when the slow shutter speed happens, they get, you know, they're froze enough where they're clear, but then the lingerie flowing around them kind of blurs out and becomes painterly, almost like a you know, like somebody just kind of took a spray can and just kind of misted it and then took the shot right then and there. So that's good use of slow shutter speed. Why is it bad? Of course, you know, it's bad because you're letting the camera do the thinking for you. You lose a little bit of control because the camera's setting the aperture, but a lot of times, if you know that all you're concerned with is the shutter, then you don't need to worry about the aperture. But you do lose a little bit of that control, and it's always something to keep in mind. So if you need to add more control, you need to make adjustments accordingly. So let's see. Was there any other examples? I don't think so. Nope. That's it for examples. And I'll show you the big ones here real quick. Here's me spinning around, and this is the full screen one. You can see the background, you know, the plate in the background by my head there is nice and clear. The beam's nice and clear on the fast shutter speed. On the slow shutter speed, you can see the clock of the microwave and everything as I'm spinning. And I was getting sick to my stomach, and oof. This other example, I think, was the shower head. I think you can see it a little bit better now on this picture because you can see all the droplets in the shower head versus on the slow shutter speed, it almost looks like they're painted on lasers or mist or something. So that's where that is. So on to Photoshop. And we got plenty of time for Photoshop. Frank sent me in another photo. He sent me in 3 photos this week. And one of his questions was in this next photo, he took a picture of one of the monuments in Boston, and it's a very neat photo, and I really like that, you know, there's some elements in here. There's the people elements as well. Frank was wondering how to get rid of the people in the photo. I'm assuming to clean it up so people aren't in his photo. I mean, that's common. Sometimes adding people, though, to some photos makes more sense because then it gives you a sense of scale, but again, it depends on what you're going to use the photo for. If it's just a memory photo, probably doesn't matter either way. Now, if you're going to print this and hang it up on the wall, you probably do not want the people in there. So, number 3 here. This is the monument that he was talking about. Down here, you see a bunch of people hanging out around the monument, and down here in the background. And I believe over here, you got a couple people walking in the trees. You also have up here the construction. I don't think I'm going to do much with the construction because that's going to be a tough one to take out unless, you know, you really work a long time at it. You could chop it off. I mean, that's always a possibility. So there's a couple different things that we can do. First thing is of course, we could crop it. Whoops, crop it. Let me try to draw this right. Crop it, you know, in a way that, you know, it's just the monument. Now we're going to eliminate a lot of the people out of this, except for this set of people right here, and then we'd have a lot less to work on Photoshop wise. So there's technique 1, crop it. So we can just go into Photoshop real quick and I'll crop the photo. So let's creatively crop this bad boy as soon as I can get control here. So I'm going to clear my proportions. If you've got a specific photo range that you're working in, like an 8x10 or a 5x7, set those for your width and your height. The resolution doesn't matter too much unless you're trying to resize the picture pixels so that you can get a bigger print or a smaller print. Really, if this is straight out of your digital camera and it hasn't been resized, you probably don't have to do much on the resolution side. So we're going to draw our box around here and we're going to look and see how tight we can make this. So we're going to make it there, and you notice here I'm going to be like, okay, I can make it here. And that's pretty tight. So first one, crop it out. Now all you got to work on, and I'll zoom in so you can see it here, are these people here. And it looks like it's a photographer taking a picture of somebody else. What you could do is now take a clone stamp brush. So I'm going to kind of start that technique right now. We'll do a clone stamp brush. So you could take this and figure out where your center points are. So right there's the center point of that area there, and I'm going to move it over, and notice I'm getting a little bit of a preview, and now I can just kind of click away until I draw back in a certain portion here. Now I got to make sure not to go too much into the monument because then I got to clean the monument up. Now a way to stop that from happening is we could make another a duplicate. So let's undo what we were doing here. There we go. Okay, we can make a duplicate. All right. Make our photo edits on here, and then we can then draw a mask on to bring in what we want to do again. So I'm going to do this again here. Whoops. So we'll do it again here. So do her corner here, And what you could do is you could work vertically. You can find different lines that make sense, different patterns. So like this one, really, you can work horizontally really good and start masking the person out totally. Just be like, okay, bye-bye. So as you can tell now, they're almost gone again. So now we can take and re-grab another area here. Maybe we don't like these people back here. So we're just going to take and probably just take and paint them out. I mean, what you could probably do, and it would probably be fairly acceptable, is you could probably just take a dark color, even like black, make a new layer, and just kind of put some black blotches over them so they're unrecognizable. And then take and darken them, and then lighten up the opacity just a touch so you get the textures back. Then you can paint back in what you want to make sure it covers. So now, as you look back there, you can kind of blur it out a little bit or blend it a little bit. And those people basically now just disappear into the shadows. And that's another technique. You can just make people disappear into shadows just by lightening and darkening them. So that's another neat technique. So coming back in here, sorry. I'm going to try to figure out why this is doing what it's doing. Because I'm still... You know what? My original clone stamp brush evidently didn't work right. So let's do it again. That's the whole point of making a duplicate. That way you can do it, you know, a little different each time. So let's grab our clone stamp brush again, and we're gonna grab that center point, and I'm just gonna lightly go over again. And I'm not gonna care. I'm gonna go into the monument a little bit this time. That way you can see. Whoops. Edit undo. I see what I did. So we'll take this area here and go boop, boop, boop. Boop, 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 boop. And really, you can just kind of start painting. But what you want to try to avoid is getting too far over to the edge, or you'll start getting anomalies. Because if you get the anomalies, then the edge of the picture starts showing up for no good reason, which is bad. So we'll grab it again here, and then we'll go up her leg and down this way, and then. I'm doing this really quick instead of doing it right. So let's now put you back the way you were, like so, and we'll do the same thing here. Clean you up and do the rim here. Oh shoot. And I'm just kind of clicking and doing and, you know, trying to clean up these anomalies. And, you know, just by selecting a different area, you can, you know, add more elements and reshape the elements a little bit. Maybe I don't like it here, I like it there, you know, so on and so forth. You know, maybe I want more of this color in here and I can kind of shape this up like that, you know. So as you can see, they've kind of disappeared. Now the question is making it real. So now you got to blend your effect in, which is the longer part of the edit, you know. So as you can tell, our feet are still there. So let's go take out their feet. And the clone stamp brush can do amazing things, you know, just by a few clicks. I mean, like right here, I'm just going to do a few clicks and her legs are going to disappear. And part of the monument, probably. You know, this is one of those things where you kind of go, okay, this should work real easy. So saying we're done blending and we get it all blended in and we like the way it looks. Okay, great. There's the ridge. Okay, I said I was going to do the people. There's the people. Now they're darkened out. They're going to fall into the shadows. So now what I want to do is I want to bring back this edge of the monument so it's nice and clear. So I'm going to mask and then I'm going to use a dark brush and I'm just going to bring back that bottom layer a little bit. Now you'll notice the people start coming back. That's fine for right now until we finalize it. And again, it's all about blending your effect and your edits so that they're real, you know, or they seem real. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a white brush to go back in here. And I'm going to take out and I'm going to make it smaller so there's less blur to it. And I'm going to take it out and take the people out again so the edits show up better than the people. Oh, I forgot his head. A man with a floating head. No. I guess we'll have to fix that a little bit. So I'm just going to take the black again, come back in and fill in a couple of these spots that I overzealously painted in. Whoops. Now I painted the other way overzealously. Let's see. That looks good. All right, so back to the idea of the clone stamp brush. Notice his head's still there. So we'll close the history for right now. So now same thing can apply. We can clone stamp brush it out, or we can do a couple different things. I think I'm just going to make it darker. I'm just going to hide him into the shadows. So I'm just going to take a little black, get on that top layer that I've been playing with, and just kind of darken him up so he just disappears. Shape up my edges here a little bit. And voila. Now as you back it off and you look at this photo, the people are gone. Yes, you can still see that I didn't blend it very good because I wasn't taking the time to blend it. But you can actually make these patterns look really real, with a little bit of time and patience. I might even go back and try it again because that might be fun. Let me try it again. What the heck? We got time. Let's try it one more time. So I'm going to make a duplicate layer by dragging it down on the new layer icon. I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm going to look at this. I'm going to go, okay, well, what am I trying to get rid of? What do I want to get rid of? So I'm going to grab the clone stamp brush. I think I'm going to, keep the brush size about the same, but I want to start it as close to the edge as possible. So I hold the Alt key to get my crosshairs. I'm going to click, and then I'm going to move it so it's lined up right, and now I'm going to click and bring it in so that the brick, that whatever that is, comes in. So now we're going to get this pattern of the repeating pattern of the thing in, like so. Now, this is all brick and stuff, so you should be able to just go over it nice and gentle. Alright, now I'm going to have to get probably a little bit smaller with my brush. So I'm going to get a little smaller with my brush so I can work on it easier. Gonna find something to get a horizontal line on. That way I can get crosshairs and line the brush up with the crosshairs so I don't misconstrue an element of the photo this time. Make it a little bigger again. I'm gonna grab it someplace in here. Same thing, straight across, horizontal, keep it lined up. I'm gonna bring it in here like so. Oh, so mio. I'll have to start coming up with songs to sing while I work on photos. So down here, same concept. I'm going to get on something that's horizontal. Click, and then move straight across. Make sure it lines up, and then drag and do it up here. And disappear those legs, like so. Right. So there we go. Now that looks a lot better. I really did a lot better job on it that time. Okay, so they're out of there. The bricks are there. The shadow's now back in place. Now what I'm going to do is mask out this edge here, because this edge is just horribly soft at this point. Now you could have selected the monument and built the mask ahead of time, so no matter what you did on this top layer, it would automatically be masked out when you go to do your clone stamp. Me, I could care less either way. I can repaint it back in. It's just as fun. That's the whole thing, is having fun with it. I mean, you can kind of play God about this. You can kind of, you are the god of Photoshop, and you are now going to take control of your photo and, make the people dance the way you want the people to dance. I mean, that's kind of the thing here. And, who doesn't like to play God once in a while, right? Okay, maybe some people. But the point still remains is that you can work on this, and then you can kind of, just ever so slightly shape things up, make it look the way you want it to. All right, now put those people back in the shadows, and voila, and voila. Now that looks a lot better, I think. I mean, that's the brick looks better. The pattern's a little off. Still, I could probably blend it one more time and get a little bit nicer. Now, here's something that you could really do to have some fun with this too. Is this could be a photo that you could use to add a message to, or add more messages to. So this is the Paul Revere Monument in Boston. And I believe this was one of the Boston Strong posters that they were putting up after the bombing. And, you know, I'm not saying to deface it, but what you could do is select this white area here and mask that out, and you could put your own message in there. You could, you know, say revolution or whatever you might want to say. You know, Paul was here. You know, I mean, you could do a lot. You could also, you know, deface these things digitally and make something totally different. You could cut Paul right out of the picture and put him into something else. Like, you could cut the entire background out and just trace over Paul. You know, you could literally take and trace over Paul and cut him out of the photo with none of the background, and then put him in one of your other photos. And that's where we start getting into composites. You know, so you could add different elements. If you remember the I think it was Star Trek, one of the Star Trek movies, they landed on a planet, and then there was all the different, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. There was all these different monuments. Well, the way they did that was masking out just the element and then putting it into another photo and then blending it together with that current photo to make it look real, or semi-real, or fairly real. And that's how you would do something like that. One of my favorite things too that you could do, you know, I'm going to play a little bit more with like I think I'm going to make some adjustments. I think I'm going to do a curves adjustment. I'm going to take and probably do a little bit of maybe like a medium contrast, just to give it a little stronger tones. Then I'm going to take and do another adjustment layer, and we're going to do, I don't know, we'll do levels so that we can get it a little brighter, like so. I love New York, right? Well, whether you do or whether you don't, that's where I'm broadcasting live out of. Let's see here. I like that. That's not bad. So just those two edits with doing the curves and the levels. You can brighten the photo and then make the photo more contrast so that a lot of the elements stick out, but you're not losing any of the tonal detail. You're not losing the greens and the blues that make up the sky and the brick in the background, but you're kind of bringing him back out to where, you know, there's a lot of detail to him. Now, I'm going to go back to the original photo. Well, actually, no, I'm going to save this first. File, save. I don't want to lose my edit, so we can check it out here. JPEG. Save, yes. So here's the original photo. Here's the edits I did. And that was to crop out the majority of the people and then use clone stamp brush on the rest of the people. You could, in fact, use clone stamp brush on probably all these people and fairly mask these people out realistically. Some of the elements, if they're small enough, you can just add a little darkness to them by painting over them with black and then blending it softly so they kind of disappear into the shadows. That's always an option to get rid of people. I think that really the big thing too is it depends on what you're looking to do with the photo. I mean, if you don't care about cropping it, you can do what I did here and crop it right to the edge here, because maybe I'm not printing this. Maybe I'm just sticking this on my photo blog instead of say, hey, I was at the Boston, you know, the Paul Revere Monument in Boston, and, you know, go Boston, stay strong, you know. Maybe I'm writing some article about that, and all I need is this piece of it, you know. If not, you need more of it, then you got to do more photo edits to get there. Really great ways to blend. You know, I'm going to get back in the photo here. I'm going to go back to the original here. A few of the great ways to blend your edits in is to use soft techniques. So if we make a new layer so that we don't lose the original layer, and we just take and we start blending things, and I'm going to do this really, really quick just to demonstrate. So maybe we want to take this and kind of follow it out here. And notice on my brush, the clone stamp brush actually is semi-soft as well. And by using these soft brushes, it blends it automatically with people or with the other surrounding elements. And that's pretty neat and amazing as well. But it all depends on the effects that you're looking to do. You know, and I think that's where you have to make those judgment calls. But here's what I was trying to get at. Hopefully I can do this fairly quickly. Okay, see, and I'm getting really sloppy. Let's just sloppy it up here. All right, so maybe we know that that's kind of what we wanted, but now I want to blend it very softly. What you can do is now mask and then take a 50% gray or whatever shade of gray you want the background to shine through. So maybe I want to do 50% gray. Okay, fine. And we're going to hit a brush and go 50% gray and go, okay, look, there's a ghost of that man that I just erased, you know? Oh, maybe we want a little more detail. So we'll make it like, you know, instead of 25%, we'll go 50%. And we'll bring back the lower torso and upper torso and the head just slightly. What a neat effect. The dad is watching over the daughter taking the photo of the boyfriend. I mean, there's so many effects that you can do with this. I mean, it's just amazing. But that's another neat technique right there. So, all right. So I think I'm pretty much done for this week. Yep. So again, here's what we started with. Here's the edits that I did. What I did was I cropped it, got rid of the people that were sitting over here and that one set in the background, the one set over here. I did lighten it. I made it a little more contrast, and then I took out the people that were right here taking the photos, and then I darkened up the background here so that I could get rid of the people sitting in the background, or at least make them less pronounced. So that's what I've done. So there's some photo edits for you. There's some great questions from Frank. Thanks. Keep sending them in. Hey, if you got photography questions or you're having a hard time shooting a particular subject, once we get through the mode dial, I'm going to start covering specific, really shooting things. Like, you know, okay, I got a sports thing I want to shoot, so we'll do a couple of those shows. Okay, I'm trying to take a sunset. What are some good settings for that? And so on. And those are where the kind of the shows are going to go. If you want to direct the show a little bit, please send me an email. thedigitalbabble, so thedigitalbabble @gmail.com. You can send me in photos, questions. If you want me to do photo edits, hey, what do you think you should do with this? I could critique your photos and we'll do some photo edits and, oh, this is what I think would work. I'm very constructive. I don't tend to get negative about anybody's work. I think everybody's photos are good in some way, shape, or form, and they mean something to somebody. So but I'm not afraid to tell you what I think is the issue, though. So keep that in mind. thedigitalbabble @gmail.com. Go check out our website, tdbny.com. You can also go check us out on fingerlakes1.tv, fingerlakes1.com, every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. And this is the Digital Babble. I'm Flipper, and I will catch you on the flip side.
A Flipside studio production. It's the Digital Babble. Tune in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. on fingerlakes1.com. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter.